Well, I'm pleased to announce that the Animal Justice Party has brought in its first bill in the history of Australia. And the bill is called the Livestock Protection Bill. I would prefer a different title, but that's what the legislature had to describe it as. But it's a very important bill because what it does is actually ask the Parliament to turn their mind to the fact that this is about preventing harm to animals, and which strikes at the very principle of the legislation, which is the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act. So it's about doing things, people in charge of animals, people who have responsibility for the care and well-being of animals, are to be proactive in making sure that animals don't end up in a situation where they suffer. And it comes from some terrible incidents this year in New South Wales, where hundreds of pigs have burnt to death in 2 different piggeries, and some have died from asphyxiation and heat exhaustion in a piggery where the ventilation system failed. So it has 3 aspects to it which are very important. Mandatory sprinkler systems that come on when there's a fire to save the pigs from burning to death or suffering from burn and smoke inhalation. The second is a remote alarm system, which is very sophisticated, and when there is a failure in, say, ventilation or feed pouring over hens, for example, which I've seen myself, hundreds suffocating under the feeder breaking and feed coming out and them not being able to escape because they're in cages. Then an alarm system which goes off and goes to one number after another until people can come and help the animals and save them from that peril. And the third is probably the most significant and controversial, and that is mandatory CCTV cameras in abattoirs and intensive farms, and also non-intensive or free-range farms, where at the critical points of animal well-being, and that is when animals are handled, being prepared for slaughter, slaughtered, being moved from one area to another. So this is a very important legislation, and I'm very proud to introduce it. It's not calling for a ban on the use of animals, but it's certainly ensuring that while animals are lawfully kept in these situations, until we change that law, that while that's in place, we make sure that they don't burn to death, suffocate to death, and are not treated in brutal ways with egregious cruelty, which the cameras that have been installed by activists have divulged.